While visiting her mother's grave, a young girl expected a quiet moment of remembrance, but instead, she heard a voice that made her freeze. Confused and startled, she turned around, not knowing what to expect. What she saw left her completely speechless and changed everything she thought she knew. Beverly was heartbroken when her mother passed away. Taken in by her loving grandparents, they brought her to visit her mother's grave anytime she asked. One afternoon, while they're alone, Beverly suddenly heard a voice say, "Hello, Beverly." She jumped, startled. She was sure no one else was there, but when she turned around and saw who had spoken, she gasped. Was this really happening? That day, Beverly had spent her time at the grave reading and eating cookies, just as she always did. As she stood to leave, she whispered, "Bye, Mommy. I'll come to see you again soon, okay?" Beverly had no idea someone had been watching her the entire time. It was already getting dark, and she knew her grandparents were waiting for her at home. Just as she was about to leave, a voice from behind startled her. "Hello, Beverly." She froze, confused, then slowly turned around. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She was utterly stunned and unsure of what to do next. This couldn't be real. She knew she needed to get home, but she couldn't bring herself to walk away. Who was this person? How did they know her name? And what were they doing at her mother's grave? Beverly smiled as she took a bite of the cookie her grandmother had just handed her. "Can I bring these to Mommy's grave today, please?" She loved these cookies. They reminded her of her mom, who used to make them all the time. That chapter of life, however, had come to an end. Since her mother's passing, Beverly had been living with her grandparents, Diana and Peter. She had never met her father. He left as soon as he learned Beverly's mother was pregnant. Of course, no one had ever told Beverly that. She was too young to understand, and for now, it was better she didn't know. Beverly was devastated when she realized she was never going to see her mother again. But her grandparents were very good to her, and they helped her with everything they could. They helped with her homework, cooked for her, made her lunch for school, and more importantly, they shared stories and memories about her mother. They took Beverly to her mother's grave almost every day. The three of them were all dealing with loss and heartbreak, but together, they made it through every day. After several weeks of visiting with her grandparents, Beverly started going to the cemetery alone. It was close by, and she knew the way. She often brought books, puzzles, or her Walkman, anything that made her feel closer to her mom. That day, she carried fresh flowers, a book, and cookies her grandma had baked. At the gate, she paused for a deep breath. Visiting never got easier. Along the path, she saw familiar faces. "Hello, darling," Mrs. Long greeted. "Hi, Mrs. Long," Beverly smiled. "Are those cookies for me?" the woman teased. "No," Beverly giggled. "They're for me and my mommy. But you can have one. They're delicious." Mrs. Long smiled and stroked Beverly's hair. "Just joking. Are you visiting your husband again?" "Yes, today's our anniversary." "What's an anniversary?" Beverly asked, curious. After their brief chat, Beverly continued on. She placed the flowers on her mother's grave and sat quietly, unaware that this visit would be unlike any other. "Hi, Mommy," she eventually said. "I miss you. Look, I brought you cookies. They are exactly like the ones you used to make for me." She placed a box of cookies next to the grave and laid one on top of it by the headstone. She also took one out for herself and took a bite. "One for you, one for me." She was enjoying the cookie when suddenly she received an unexpected guest, and it wouldn't be the only one of the day. A small bird had flown to her and hopped around on the grass next to her, eagerly picking up the cookie crumbs that had fallen on the ground. "Hello, Mr. Bird. Do you like the cookie?" "It's delicious. My granny made it. It's a special family recipe," Beverly said cheerfully. She thought the little bird gave a nod, so she took that as a yes. "Do you have a family or do you live all alone?" she asked. When the bird didn't respond, she continued, "I live with my grandparents now. They're really sweet, and my granny makes amazing cookies. But I'd still miss my mom. That's why I come here, to be close to her." She glanced at the grave, then back at the bird. Seeing it had finished the crumbs, she reached into the box. "One another cookie," she offered. The bird took it in its beak and tried to fly off, but it was too heavy. Beverly giggled as she watched it nibble away until it could finally carry the small piece off. "Bye, Mr. Bird. Make sure to come see me again next time," she yelled out when the bird flew away. "That was a funny bird, wasn't it, Mommy?" She sat in silence for a while and then started telling her mother about anything she could think of that was worth mentioning. She told her about her math homework, a new teacher at school, her friend Lisa's new puppy, and the new pencils Grandpa had bought her. An hour had passed by the time Beverly finished talking. She knew it was getting late. Grandma and Grandpa always warned her not to stay out after dark, but she wasn't quite ready to leave. She pulled out her book and became lost in a story about a pirate girl and her parrot, completely unaware of how dim the light had become. "Oh no, I have to hurry," she gasped. "I'm sorry, Mommy, but I have to go." She packed up, tears brimming as she whispered, "Grandma said it's okay to cry. I'm still a big girl." With her hand on the tombstone, she turned to leave, then suddenly froze. Something in the corner of her eye caught her attention. Was she really seeing this? She crouched down to take a closer look, and she couldn't believe it. This had to be a sign from her mom, telling her that she missed her too, and that everything was going to be okay. You see, Beverly had spotted something special right next to her shoe, something that made her believe her mother could hear everything she said. It was a 4-leaf clover. Back in the day, whenever she and her mom found one of these, they gave it to each other as a sign of love and good luck, and her finding a clover beside her mom's grave now? It could not be a coincidence. Beverly thought about picking the flower and taking it home, but changed her mind. "You can keep this one, Mommy," she whispered, knowing it was time to go. Just as she turned to leave, a voice stopped her. "Hello, Beverly." She froze, looking around. Then she heard it again. "I'm right here." Someone was with her. Beverly slowly turned and gasped when she saw who it was. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "What? How are you real?" she stammered, blinking in shock. The woman smiled gently. "Of course I am," she said, holding out her arms. Beverly paused for only a second before running straight into her embrace, holding her tightly. "Come, there is something I want to show you," the woman said to her, and she took a few steps away from the grave. However, Beverly wasn't sure about following her, and the woman noticed. "What is it? Don't you want to come with me?" the woman asked softly. Beverly hesitated. "Granny and Grandpa are waiting for me, or us." The woman smiled. "I already told Grandma Diana and Grandpa Peter I'd pick you up. They said they'd meet us later. It's okay, you can trust me." Hearing her grandparents' names eased Beverly's fears. How else would this woman know? Smiling now, she took her hand, still unsure where they were going. "Can I ask you something?" Beverly said. "Of course, darling. Who are you?" The woman's answer made Beverly freeze. Her eyes filled with tears as she hugged her tightly. "I knew it. Mommy sent me a sign," she whispered. But Beverly didn't realize she just made a terrible mistake because the woman had said exactly what she knew would win her trust. "I'm your guardian angel. Your mom sent me to watch over you." This was obviously not true, and the woman was using it as an excuse to get Beverly to go with her. She took Beverly by the hand, and together they walked away from the grave and out of the cemetery. Beverly had no idea where they were going, but she did not feel afraid at all. Well, not yet. She would soon realize that this woman was not who she was pretending to be. Diana and Peter grew increasingly anxious. Beverly was now over an hour late. At first, they thought she'd just lost track of time, but as night fell and there was still no sign of her, worry turned to fear. "I'm going to look for her," Diana said, grabbing her coat. "Diana, wait," Peter called. "One of us should stay here in case she comes back. And you shouldn't be out alone in the dark." After a pause, Diana agreed. Peter would head to the cemetery, taking Beverly's usual route past the duck pond, while she stayed behind to watch for her. Peter walked quickly, heart pounding with hope, but when he arrived at the grave, Beverly was gone. He double-checked the headstone, no doubt about it. This was the spot, but she wasn't there. He looked around, a bit confused and in disbelief. At that moment, he realized that his granddaughter was missing. He didn't want to call Diana just yet. It would break her heart to hear this horrible news, and besides, it couldn't be true. He was determined to keep looking for Beverly and find her. He didn't care how long it would take him, but he was not going home without her. After giving himself a pep talk, Peter knew it was time to act. But where could he even begin? He was exhausted from walking to the cemetery and quickly realized he couldn't do this alone. With a heavy sigh, he pulled out his phone and called the police. "Rosewood Police Department, how can I help you?" the dispatcher asked. Peter explained that his granddaughter was missing, and she assured him an officer would be dispatched right away. As he ended the call, Peter couldn't hold back his tears. Just minutes later, a police car arrived at the cemetery gates, and an officer approached. "Good evening, I'm Officer Kyle. I understand your granddaughter is missing." Peter nodded and recounted the day's events. "Beverly visits her mother's grave often, but she always comes home on time. This has never happened before." Officer Kyle nodded seriously. "Don't worry, sir. We'll do everything we can to find her." Peter realized that he really could not keep this from Diana anymore. He needed to tell her what was going on. Officer Kyle offered to drop him off at home, but he politely declined. "Thank you, but it's more important that you start looking for Beverly as soon as possible." Peter headed home while Officer Kyle stayed to investigate. At the cemetery office, he asked the security guard to review the day's footage. "Of course," the guard said, queuing it up. Kyle quickly spotted Beverly. "There, that's her." Moments later, a woman appeared, taking Beverly's hand and walking away with her. "Who is this woman?" Kyle muttered, determined to find out. Before continuing his search, he stopped by Peter and Diana's house. "Did you find her? Did you find our Beverly?" Diana asked, voice trembling. "Not yet," Kyle replied, "but I found something on the footage." "Please, do you recognize this woman?" Officer Kyle showed them photos from the security footage. Beverly walking hand in hand with a woman. Diana and Peter gasped in shock, clinging to each other. "No, that can't be real," Diana cried. Peter tried to comfort her, but his own worry was clear. Officer Kyle, now deeply concerned, asked, "Please, who is this woman? Do you know where I can find her?" Diana, visibly shaken, stood up. I need a glass of water," she said, wiping her tears as she walked to the kitchen. She wasn't ready to talk, at least not yet. Peter approached the officer and explained who the woman was, and then everything became clear. It all made sense now. Officer Kyle got in touch with his team back at the police station and asked them to track down this woman. Peter had given him a name, and luckily, that was enough. Apparently, she had been in contact with the police before because her file popped right up. The next morning, Beverly was safely back home, unharmed. Officer Kyle had managed to locate her, even though her kidnapper had gone to great lengths to hide her. As it turned out, the abduction had been planned for quite some time. The woman responsible was her aunt, Brittany, who had been estranged from the family after a string of criminal offenses. Diana and Peter had done everything they could to steer her back onto the right path, but Brittany had refused to listen. Years earlier, she had even attempted to snatch Beverly from her mother during a visit to the park. Beverly's mother had caught her in the act and called the police, and after that incident, no one in the family heard from Brittany again, until now. When Brittany heard the heartbreaking news of her sister's passing, she didn't reach out to her grieving family. Instead, she saw it as a chance to finally put her long-harbored plan into motion. She had always longed for a daughter, and now, with her sister gone, she convinced herself there was nothing stopping her from simply taking hers. It was an outrageous idea, of course, but Brittany didn't see it that way. Fortunately, Peter and Diana did the right thing by contacting the police as soon as they sensed something was wrong. Beverly was safely returned home, and Brittany was arrested and sentenced to prison. Life gradually settled again, and Lily continued living with her grandparents, building a strong and loving bond with them. They still visited her mother's grave as often as possible, but from that day forward, they always went together. They were more than just a family, they were a team. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. I hope you like this story. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Also subscribe and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.